Uh, so we're so glad that you're here today. We'll be reading a section entitled The Consistency of Means and Ends, and we'll get into what are they talking about there. But here's the background. In this life, most people adjust themselves to this world. And consequently, as the world changes, it's impossible to maintain a settled and established goals. As a result, people feel unsettled and destabilized. They lack a solid foundation. And into this situation, the Holy Spirit offers a solution, a long-term goal which unites people together around a spiritual mission of healing and wholeness. There's good news here, for the most difficult challenge is to discover a worthy goal that inspires living the good life. Holy Spirit's goal has already been given and is well defined. Only two questions remain. Will you wholeheartedly join in the plan? And what are the steps given as your part in this plan? Let's find out together. Welcome to Miracles on High Plains. I'm your host, Jonaca, and our reader for today is Julie C.
We have said much about discrepancies and means and end, and how these must be brought in line before your holy relationship can bring you only joy. But we have also said the means to meet the Holy Spirit's goal will come from the same source as does his purpose. Being so simple and direct, this course has nothing in it that is not consistent. The seeming inconsistencies, or parts you find more difficult than others, are merely indications of areas where means and end are still discrepant, and this produces great discomfort. This need not be. This course requires almost nothing of you. It is impossible to imagine one that asks so little or could offer more.
Mm-hmm. So it is true, it proves obvious after spending enough time with the course that this course has nothing in it that is not consistent. It's extraordinarily consistent. What it does is it limits itself to its focus area so that it might remain consistent. Its focus area is to help you find inner peace. And so there's many other ideas that are beyond the scope of this course, that if the course were to enter into those other domains, it would become increasingly difficult to remain consistent. However, as a practitioner, it doesn't always seem consistent. And what we will find out, that the parts that you find inconsistent are indications that the way in which you're attempting to apply the course does not fit with the Holy Spirit's methods. The means of getting there are not consistent with the ends. So let's back up one step and make sure you understand means and ends. The end is the goal, the purpose for which all of this is being done. And we can express it in a number of different ways. The goal would be the plan of atonement, the plan to bring the entire sonship home and reunite them in a unity of love. that can be expressed in many ways, is to bring oneness home. That's the goal, the end that the Holy Spirit works for. And then once the Course is very clear that you must first decide what is your goal, and then you can figure out the path to get there. And so the means are the path that you are to take in order to reach the goal. And so the means come after you've decided the goal. And ego wants to disrupt your means even after you accept the Holy Spirit's goal. What would that look like? That in your heart, you accept the Holy Spirit's plan of love as yours, but in your practice, you attempt to control how that's done. You insert your own self-determined plan into how it's done. So today's reading is about bringing the means in line with the goal, so that not only are you practicing the Holy Spirit's goal, but you're also practice using the methods that Holy Spirit recommends. And when you do that, it is true that this course requires almost nothing of you, because the goal is given you and the means of getting the goal are given you as well. The only thing that's asked is for your willing and glad cooperation. Let's go on.
The period of discomfort that follows the sudden change in a relationship from sin to holiness may now be almost over. To the extent you still experience it, you are refusing to leave the means to him who changed the purpose. You recognize you want the goal. Are you not also willing to accept the means? If you are not, excuse me, if you are not, let us admit that you are inconsistent. A purpose is attained by means, and if you want a purpose, you must be willing to want the means as well. How can one be sincere and say, I want this above all else, and yet I do not want to learn the means to get it?
So this is very practical, because it's in acknowledgement that very few of us have perfect commitment to this program, to attaining the goal that the Holy Spirit has offered. And it tells us what to look for if that's the case. It's a period of discomfort that is an indication that you're still trying to obtain a goal using your own methods, which is our focus here. And it says, let us admit that we are inconsistent. It would be better than to try to bury this hidden error. It would be better than to bury it, would be to admit it, and because then it can be healed. And so the goal, the intent here is to not change the goal of a holy relationship, for it need not be changed, but to course correct the method whereby you and I are using to pursue the goal. A friend of mine used to use a metaphor that I find very helpful here. It comes from sailing, and it was metaphor was learning when to tack. So in a sailing, you don't go in a straight line towards your goal because the wind rarely is going the exact same direction that you're going. So you have to tack on an angle. You have to approach it on an angle. And so you zigzag. And the key thing is to know when to zig and when to zag and to change course. And so this material that we're reading here is all about paying attention, knowing that it would be better to admit that you're discomfortable with your experience. It would be better to admit that and acknowledge that it's time to change course than it would be to stay on the existing heading and continue to go off course. Julie?
To obtain the goal, the Holy Spirit indeed asks little. He asks no more to give the means as well. The means are second to the goal, and when you hesitate, it is because the purpose frightens you and not the means. Remember this, for otherwise you will make the error of believing the means are difficult. Yet how can they be difficult if they are merely given you? They guarantee the goal, and they are perfectly in line with it. Before we look at them a little closer, remember that if you think they are impossible, your wanting of the purpose has been shaken. For if a goal is possible to reach, the means to do so must be possible as well.
Mm-hmm. This may be the most important paragraph in this section for understanding the principles and how they work in this respect. So again, there are two things. One, there is your acceptance of the goal of the Holy Spirit as your own goal, and that is not a given that you would accept it as your own goal. And then there is adopting the Holy Spirit's means for attempting the goal. So what is frequently said, this will be a major correction. People will say that this course is very difficult because we know that it's deep and profound and asks for a major shift in perception. There's no doubt about that. But whether or not that is difficult or not is what we want to discuss for a minute. What the Course says is if you believe the means are difficult, that is actually an indication that you're half-hearted with respect to the goal. That in reality, speaking from the Holy Spirit's perspective, the means are gifted you. They are arranged for you to have encounters in your life that will give you the opportunity to practice these principles in your relationships. The means are given to you. But what is not certain is whether or not you're committed to the goal. And so if you're not committed to the goal, the means will seem very difficult. It'll feel like a struggle, feel like a hardship. The ego wants you to believe that great sacrifice is required of you to do this course. So we want to illuminate that because those are parts of the ego propaganda, the ego graffiti, that it's hard, that this is difficult and requires sacrifices of you that you would not otherwise want to make. If we shift up to the higher plane, it's all given to you. The goal is given to you, the means are given to you, and there's very little asked of you except for your wholehearted cooperation. In fact, it says if a goal is possible to reach, it's certain that the means to do so must be possible to reach it as well. It's logical. If a goal is possible to reach, then it must be that the means are possible as well. And the means are not up in your hands. They are given to you. Still requires your cooperation and your miracle mindedness to be alert for those encounters when healing is called for. It very much requires that you be awake, miracle minded, and ready, but to the arrangements for those instances, those encounters, are orchestrated for you. Atisha?
Yeah, this is really interesting. And the last thing that you said was what I wanted to point out is there, at least for me, there's been this process of learning to, like, waking up to seeing the situations in my life and maybe the difficult relationships as not just difficulties, but as like practice grounds, as means for practicing what I'm learning. And so the whole idea of believing the means are difficult, I think more for me, it's shifting into the idea of these are not just hardships that are there to just annoy you. Like there is a spiritual purpose to what's happening. And then and then the difficulty for me, I guess if there is difficulty, is staying in that place and not switching back to, oh, I wish I wasn't going through this, but to stay with it as fodder for the growth and for the learning and for the healing. I'm complete.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm going to remain confidential and private here, but in order for us to heal, it's necessary that those parts of ourselves that are unresolved and in need of healing come to the surface. And they come to the surface in relationships and encounters. And those encounters where our unhealed self arises to the ego is a source of panic and fear. But to the Holy Spirit, this is an invitation to heal. Now that this has come up to the surface again, let's give this over to the Holy Spirit and undo the errors in our mind and be healed so that we become free. And so this course will definitely bring up to the surface those things that need healing. That's for your good. Otherwise, the other choice is to stuff it for another day, and that's a choice to not heal at this time. So yes, it appears to be difficult from the eyes of the ego, but from the purpose that the Holy Spirit gives, these are opportunities to heal once and for all, to let go and to become free. And you can experience this every month of your life, maybe even more frequently. So, Julie, is it possible?
It is impossible to see your brother as sinless and yet to look upon him as a body. Is this not perfectly consistent with the goal of holiness? For holiness is merely the result of letting the effects of sin be lifted. So what was always true is recognized. To see a sinless body is impossible, for holiness is positive and the body is merely neutral. It is not sinful, but neither is it sinless. As nothing, which it is, the body cannot meaningfully be invested with the attributes of Christ or the ego. Either must be in error, for both would place the attributes where they cannot be, and both must be undone for purposes of truth.
Mm-hmm. So I want to clarify something because somebody mentioned a little weeks ago about the Course being, could be perceived as a body basher, about bashing the experience of the body. And that would be the way ego would read it, for sure, because the body is the ego's idol. And in the Course's, I want to clarify here. In the Course's view, the body is neutral. It's 85% water. So, I mean, there's no judgment there about the body. It's the purpose that the mind assigns to the body can be used for good or for harm. So the mind assigns a purpose to the body. Otherwise, the body is neutral. And if the mind believes in a loveless world, if your starting foundation is lack of love, emptiness, darkness, then bodies are viewed as symbolic of lack of love. It's sin is lack of love in A Course of Miracles. It's a view of the world as being devoid of love. And so the bodies become symbolic of that view. This is the confused state of mind. In truth, switching now, in truth, a body is neutral. And therefore, if the mind assigns a holy purpose to the body, then the body can be viewed as holy. For in other words, to use your voice to help another person, to communicate words of encouragement and prayer and support and love, is to use your body for a holy purpose. And so the Course is not bashing the body, it's merely pointing out that the ego seeks to use the body for an unholy purpose and to encourage us to undo that teaching of the ego and instead view the body through the eyes of the Holy Spirit, which is as a communication tool for good. So that's all I have to say about that. What do you have to say? Quiet group tonight. Julie?
The body is the means by which the ego tries to make the unholy relationship seem real. The unholy instant is the time of bodies, but the purpose here is sin. It cannot be attained but in illusion, and so the illusion of a brother as a body is quite in keeping with the purpose of unholiness. Because of this consistency, the means remain unquestioned, while the end is cherished. Seeing adapts to wish, for sight is always secondary to desire. And if you see the body, you have chosen judgment and not vision. For vision, like relationships, has no order. You either see or not.
Mm-hmm. All right, so the focus here is on how the ego would view the body and how the ego would use the body for the fulfillment of its own purpose. And so this brings into relief, stark relief again, is what is the purpose that you adopt for your living, for your life? What is the purpose? If you don't know the answer to that question, if there's a vacuum that in your thinking about what is your purpose, then the ego will come rushing in to fill that vacuum. This is assured. Give it a vacuum and the ego will attempt to fill it, for the ego is assertive in that respect. And therefore, but it need not be that way. There is a clearly stated purpose for you that the Holy Spirit is given. It's found in your holy relationship with your Creator and all of creation, to reunite, to be in perfect union with Creator and creation is your purpose. The ego, however, would create a counter narrative to that purpose, which then, believing in that counter narrative, believing that there is a severe lack of love in this world, would then say, well, if there's a lack of love, where am I going to find love? I'm going to go out and get it out. I'm going to go out and get it from somebody else. It's a belief system. It's not evil on the surface. It's not bad intended on the surface, but it's founded upon a belief in a lack of love, which is a separation from love. And so the effects result in madness. Julie?
The line about you see what you want to see. That's so clear and so stark. Again, that goes back to choices. You know, the choice is always the first step. And then you either have sight or vision, and it goes from there. It's like a huge decision tree, and the branches just come down and spread on out. We see what we want to see, what we choose to see.
So true about the decision tree, Julie. I'm so glad that you're familiar with that. And yes, it's very much structured that way, with a root where it begins and then continues, as you said, to branch out. Let me make sure that everybody understands this idea of what you want to see, of what you wish for. We can express that in a number of ways. What you hold in your heart and treasure and value above everything else is what you're wishing for. You cherish it. Some people might cherish looking good in front of others, to be esteemed by others, regarded highly by others. They might make that their most profound idol that they work towards. Other people, there's obviously many things that one can value and center their life around. In the Course of Miracles, we learn that it's not necessary that you figure it out for yourself. Rather, it's suggested that we adopt the value system that the Holy Spirit has already defined. It's a value system that unites us all together in a common set of values and meanings. And it's a value system that puts ultimate value on your inner divinity, your inner light. And the recognition that we read it earlier in this chapter, the value of your brother, the word they used is inestimable. Your brother's value is inestimable. Now, I say that word wrong sometimes, inestimable. Somebody who's really good with phonics can help me there if you need to. So the value is all when the Creator brought you into being, your being is of infinite value. The values are already existent. They need not be conjured up or made up. They are there. We just need to align ourselves with that thought system. It's a choice.
Who sees a brother's body has laid a judgment on him and sees him not. He does not really see him as sinful. He does not see him at all. In the darkness of sin, he is invisible. He can but be imagined in the darkness. And it is here that the illusions you hold about him are not held up to his reality. Here are illusions and reality kept separated. Here are illusions never brought to truth and always hidden from it. And here, in darkness, is your brother's reality imagined as a body, in unholy relationships with other bodies, serving the cause of sin an instant before he dies.
So I think this is a really good, Julie, you and I have talked a lot about this, about there are things that are hidden in the subconscious mind in the darkness, and then there's the light. And what do we do about that? And so what we're talking about are beliefs and ideas that you have learned in this world that are based on a premise of lack of love. In a world lacking in love, what do we have to do to survive, to find meaning, to try to find truth in the darkness would be one ego teaching. And what the Course indicates is that the whole idea of separation is keeping those hidden, frightening fears and guilts and judgments that you've learned probably before you were age 15, maybe much earlier. These beliefs and lack of love. I didn't get all the love I wanted at home. That those beliefs, the ego would keep them out of the light, would keep them hidden away where they do have an influence over your thinking, and would have them remain unchallenged, unquestioned forever, so that the power that they have behind the scenes continues on. That's the ego's plan. The Course's plan for healing is to expose those hidden ideas, to bring them out where we can talk about them and look at them and examine them under peaceful conditions, and compare them with the statements of truth that the Holy Spirit offers, and then make your own conscious choice to reject the lies, to reject lack of love as the foundation of creation, and instead adopt the thought system that the Holy Spirit teaches. So this speaks to it right here when we say, here are illusions never brought to truth and always hidden from it. We are referring to illusions that hide in the corners of your mind. We're referring to your experience, illusions that hide in the corner of your mind, and this has consequences. And here in darkness is your brother's reality imagined. We read about it in the previous section. It's the fear of your brother. What is that? What is it that we're afraid of? it's because in a darkness, our own fears are then projected onto our brothers, and that then distorts our ability to relate ourselves to others. This is foundations of spiritual psychology. Your own fears will get projected out onto others and therefore interfere with your relationship. And then later we find out that those same fears are projected onto whatever we believe about God. And so it interferes with our ability to relate ourselves peacefully and with comfort to our idea of God. And so unearthing these hidden beliefs is fundamental. We cannot build build is maybe not the right word. We cannot ascend to higher planes of clarity and understanding and vision and bring these hidden beliefs along with us, because they are the obstacles to our peace. Julie?
I was thinking as you were talking that the process works in reverse as well. So if we start, for example, the day with lessons, then that impacts how we see everything, every body, every person. So I know that there's no order of difficulty in anything, relationships, vision, and all that. So that's not what I'm promoting. It's just that to start the day and start every opportunity for sight and make it an opportunity for vision instead.
Very much so. And in so doing, you're affirming your purpose, your intention. What do I want for this day? There's is it chapter 31? Rules for living. What do I want to make of this day? You're affirming, and workbook lesson is a framework for doing that. You're affirming your intentionality, your purpose there, reminding your ordinary working mind that we're here for a higher purpose, that yes, we may get distracted along the way, but our higher purpose is our source of motivation. So yes, doing your lessons on a regular basis is excellent advice.
There is indeed a difference between this vain imagining and vision. The difference lies not in them, but in their purpose. Both are but means, each one appropriate to the end for which it is employed. Neither can serve the purpose of the other, for each one is a choice of purpose employed on its behalf. Either is valued as a separate thing apart from the intention. The means seem real because the goal is valued, and judgment has no value unless the goal is sin.
Wow, there's a lot here, a lot more here than I took at first. So maybe we haven't said it here, but the means or the path you use to get to the goal, the means are temporary. When you get to the goal, the path no longer is needed when you've arrived. So the means, which Holy Spirit would say vision, clarity, an illuminated understanding of who you are, why you're here, and what your purpose is, that is a gift that helps you on the journey, but once you've reached the goal is no longer necessary. And so we would say there is not a inherent, the path, the means is not an eternal value. It's temporal. But the purpose is definitely of eternal value. And therefore, can we say it enough times? Being really clear on your purpose is the most important decision you could make. And so 2 more comments. If you're out on a sea and you've lost your navigation system and you can't see land anywhere, but you have power, what's the most important choice you make? It's the direction you head. The direction you head determines your likelihood of success in finding land. Your goal, identifying the goal is really critical. And in many ways, if you don't know your purpose, it's like being out on the sea without a compass and not knowing what direction to go in. You can use your power to motor around, and maybe each day you change direction, not knowing what to do or where to go. One more comment I had, and I'm going outside Course in Miracles, but this is about the power of intention, the choice of purpose, what the end for which it is intended. Dr. Wayne Dyer wrote a book about the power of intention. I read it along with a group of people about 20 years ago. It was very good, very clear. So he recognized this principle and wrote a whole book about it. And now he wrote it to an audience that was not necessarily believing in God. And so the words that he used is to align yourself with the intention of the universe. That would be the language, the symbols that he used to share the purpose of the universe, the force of the universe. But in concept, all that he said is still true, is choosing your intention is central to the outcome of your living. It gives it meaning. Okay, we'll go on.
The body cannot be looked upon except through judgment. To see the body is a sign that you lack vision and have denied the means the Holy Spirit offers you to serve his purpose. How can a holy relationship achieve its purpose through the means of sin? Judgment you taught yourself. Vision is learned from him who would undo your teaching. His vision cannot see the body because it cannot look on sin, and thus it leads you to reality. Your holy brother, sight of whom is your release, is no illusion. Attempt to see him not in darkness, for your imaginings about him will seem real there. You closed your eyes to shut him out. Such was your purpose. And while this purpose seemed to have a meaning, the means for its attainment will be evaluated as worth the seeing, and so you will not see.
Just thinking about what part of this to comment on. You know, it's said several times in the reading so far that to look upon the body would be the expression. And that needs some interpretation. Because if you're walking down the street and there's somebody headed towards you, are we talking about you notice them coming towards you? You see them in their body? Clearly, we're not talking about noticing that somebody is there to look upon the body. What we're talking about, as with all things in the Course, is deeper than that. And so this is where interpretation is involved. And so, if I may interpret, to look upon the other person as nothing more than a body, which they used to have a saying, maybe it's gone out of popularity now, is to look on the other person as a piece of meat. To look upon the person as just that, as a body without a soul, without any value other than what their body offers. So we're talking about, again, going down to what do you value in your heart. Whatever you value in your heart, you will then, your physical eyes will be used as a means of finding verification of what you value in your heart. It says it here, whatever seems to have a meaning, this can be used in darkness or in light. You will then evaluate its worth, and so you will. I'm getting a little. My words are getting chewed up here. The means for attaining the thing that you hold in your heart, you'll then use your eyes to go out and evaluate the worth of others as fulfilling or not fulfilling what you hold in your heart. And in the Holy Spirit's teaching, where holy relationships are our home, then every person represents an opportunity for a holy relationship. And therefore, the value of every person is infinite, of infinite value. And so when we say seeing, remember, seeing begins with what we treasure and value on our own heart, and then the eyes merely fulfill the mission that the heart has given it. Yeah. All right. Let's go on.
Your question should not be, how can I see my brother without the body? Ask only, do I really wish to see him sinless? And as you ask, forget not that his sinlessness is your escape from fear. Salvation is the Holy Spirit's goal. The means is vision, for what the seeing look upon is sinless. No one who loves can judge, and what he sees is free of condemnation. And what he sees he did not make, for it was given him to see, as was the vision that made seeing possible.
Well, this is interesting because it would be very easy after reading the material that we saw tonight to ask yourself, how am I supposed to see my brother without a body? Like, does that mean they're invisible? No, that represents a lack of clarity here. Rather, the question is, what attributes do you wish to look for in your brother? So let's try to make this really simple. When you encounter a person, we all know how our physical eyes might assess another person. So if the person is 7 foot tall and weighs 300 pounds, you're very aware of that. Because, or if they're 4 foot tall and weigh 60 pounds, you're very aware of that. That's not the level on which the soul is concerned with. The concern here is, what am I looking for in the other person? What is it that I wish to see in them? Do I wish to see the light of the Holy Spirit in them? Do I wish to see the possibility for a holy relationship and a holy encounter in them? Because if that's what you're wishing for, you're ready to have it, to experience it. That's what miracle readiness is. When Julie spoke earlier about doing the lessons before you go out, that preps your mind to encounter people in a right state of mind where you're hoping to have these kinds of meaningful encounters. Julie?
Thinking about the line that I liked in paragraph 5, seeing adapts to wish, for sight is always secondary to desire. So that relates exactly to, do I really wish to see him sinless? So, the wish is not maybe used in the way that we would use wish outside of the course, but it's, what choice are you making?
Yes. Yes. Very, very much so. Very much so. And you could view these things as choices from your higher self, your soulful self, the part of yourself with whom the angels of your higher nature, versus choices from the lower self that's trying to adjust itself and fit in with the laws of this world. So very much so. And we are all doing this. These are oftentimes subconscious, but this process goes on naturally. This is what a mind does, is it perceives and makes choices either under the guidance of Holy Spirit, or lacking that guidance, it looks elsewhere and the ego rushes in. Julie, did you have a follow-up?
Thank you. I just a second ago had this memory of like, I have had people in my life, and I've been this person at times too, who use vigilance as a way of kind of practicing being the social sheriff, right? So what I mean by that is, people, and I have too, have spent time gathering up negative energy, if you will, and feeling like it's their purpose to judge a situation because someone has to judge it. There must be judgment, which some people say is aligned to justice in whatever way they're thinking of it. And I remember before I came to the course having a conversation with this other person saying, well, if you believe, in God or Holy Spirit, then you wouldn't worry so much what happens in front of your face with what's playing out before you, because you could trust that there is a greater thing happening here, and there is a greater loving, protecting energy that is above and beyond and at the origin and at the end of everything that you are going to see and experience and judge. You wouldn't feel so fear-based and worry that if you don't judge and punish, the person will get away with something. And I know today that that's not my job. That's not my job. My job is to love. And so seeing with love and choosing that site helps me to stay in my lane, and it also brings me peace. They're very connected for me.
Yeah, very much so. Because by staying in your lane and not choosing to be the judge, you avoid all the guilt that comes along with being the judge. And that allows you to remain at peace rather than being flooded with judgments and guilt. You are enabled to continue forward in peace. Very well said. Atisha?
Yeah, this line, ask only, do I really wish to see him sinless? You know, like tonight at 7 o'clock, I can say 100% yes. I wish to see my colleagues tomorrow at work as my brothers and sisters without a body, and that I wish to see them sinless. But I think a point of frustration for me is something I mentioned a couple months ago, which is getting caught up in the autopilot. You know, I'm in a workplace and I'm in my office, which I've been in almost 20 years. And so this mental, like all of this is new. And I have so much practice seeing them as bodies and as bodies that can be aggravating to me and that I disagree with in some cases. So yeah, so again, like spirit is willing, but I guess in this case, my brain, my mind, my ability to remember that this is something that I want to do is still weak, and that can be a point of frustration. I oftentimes remember after the fact, as I'm going home, like, oh wow, yeah, you know, that would have been a great opportunity to see this person as sinless or as without a body, but instead I was in autopilot. So, yeah, that's what I want to say.
Yeah, no, it's very true. Thank you for the way you represented that. And the course speaks about this. It uses what you're calling autopilot. It confirms and refers to it as habit patterns of reacting to reoccurring situations. You know, like at work with your colleagues happens a lot over the course of 20 years. And we develop habits and patterns of reacting. We do this in all areas of our life, in all areas. And so this course asks of you and empowers you to change the habit patterns of your thinking, but that does definitely require practice. There's an undoing, and in many ways, the things that have been taught in modern psychology about changing a habit apply here. There's a breaking of the old pattern, and there's a formulation of a new pattern of responding. And in the in between zone is where it's messy because, as Atisha said, oh, I might remember later on that I could have made a better choice there, but I fell back into autopilot. So, a persistence under that environment where you're confronted with your old habits and the new ones. Let's see, what does the course say about accelerating that process of breaking the old habit and forming a new one? Well, one, unlike modern psychology, you're not in this by yourself. This is not a go it alone process. This is calling upon your support network, your spiritual support network, which can be both in spiritual form as well as in human form. Matter of fact, I've found a lot of times when you have a fellow miracle traveler to converse with about these things, it's very reassuring to join together with somebody else and get a perspective on things. Certainly, what Julie mentioned is practicing the whole idea of the lessons are not only to clarify your purpose, but also to give you a set of a lesson that is abstract enough that it's applicable to many different situations. So if it's as simple as I could choose again in this situation, as you and pay attention to your feelings, those old habit patterns, inevitably, if they were learned in judgment, guilt, fear, inevitably usher in with them a whole set of disturbing feelings. So recognize it the minute it's happening. And this is what the Course is very strong about it. Do not delay, immediately turn to Spirit and ask for help. For other words, don't let those psychological neurotransmitters that have to do with anxiety get flowing, but immediately turn to the Holy Spirit and ask for help. So that's the vital practice, is breaking those old habits. Noel?
You just said most of what I was going to say
All right.
in a better way, but also addressing both Julie and Atisha, the judgment for me, it's not consciously self-appointed, but it's a reflex, like it's a habit pattern. And then, as Atisha was saying, yes, I'm doing it at 7, but what about at 7:35 after I leave the meeting? So for me, as we've said many times, it's constant vigilance. It's also, as Christoph just said in the chat, it's denying the erroneous thought. And as you said, it's being gentle with myself every time I have to keep reminding myself.
Mm-hmm.
So, this section started with, it's not difficult. Well, for me, it has been difficult because it's demanding that attention and not condemning myself. And again, continually being on the lookout for the erroneous thoughts. I was talking with somebody the other day, and she said, when a negative thought comes to me, she said, I say, no, 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 like that. And I thought that was pretty good. It's very direct, probably effective.
Yeah, very true. Julie, I couldn't tell if your hand was up from before or, yeah, okay. So I just wanted to say one more thing about practice and habits. Hopefully this is helpful. When I was a teenager, I and a friend of mine were supposed to sing a duet in church, and we rehearsed it offline. I went to work with him, and we had the whole day there, and we sang that song so often. We had every nuance, every word, every note was second nature to us. There was no effort on our part to find the note in the song or the timing there, so that we didn't have to concentrate on that. We could just be present. And I think that's true of anything that you learn really well, is that it frees you up to be present there. This is what Noel was referring to. It starts to become automatic because it's just so well known. So if I would say the Beatles song, All You Need Is, you immediately know the next word is love. You don't have to try to remember that. It just comes there. And so in many ways, what we're dealing here with in the course is forgetting and remembering. As Christoph said, deny the old patterns, put them out of your mind, and learn and remember a new set of patterns. And rehearsal is one of the best ways we have for acquiring that. Before we wrap up tonight, let's see if I can get this. Well, that's not what we were going to do. Okay. I attempted to summarize what I thought were the major points for tonight. And so something like this. What is the goal? The Holy Spirit has defined the goal for the entire universe, the goal for all time. It's a holy relationship amongst all the members of creation, are participants in that. And how do we get there? What is the means? We call it the Holy Spirit's vision. It's to see others as equals to ourselves, as of infinite worth, to see them through spiritual eyes of the soul, and to see our relationship to them as a vital component of our healing and our wholeness in achieving the goal. So this spiritual vision does involve overlooking error. Oh, I'm sorry. Next bullet point here. The spiritual vision does require overlooking error. This is the same thing as what Christoph was saying on the chat, is the proper use of denial is to not get sucked in to the ego's propaganda. Julie said it, to stay in my own lane and not go swimming off in another lane, to overlook those things and stay focused. And in this context, it would be to belittle your brother to being only equivalent to their body and having no other value other than the body, not fall for that. So, because ego would guide us towards an unholy relationship, which is lacking in love and uses other people to try to fulfill what it believes is it's lacking. And if you do that, you would be engaging in judgment, material judgment, not vision. So coming back to the relationship factor, it turns out that, and this is speaks a little bit to what Noelle just mentioned. She said, I do find it difficult because I have to be vigilant so often there. My habits have not yet shifted so completely that I can go on autopilot. Actually, there is no autopilot. I haven't found the autopilot in the Course of Miracles yet. There is new habits that come easy because they are so well practiced. Just like you sing a song 100 times, you don't have to worry about the notes. But there's no autopilot because a higher purpose always requires your willingness to actively participate. There's never a robotic autopilot. So when relationships seem difficult, this is an indication that the way in which either the goal was not, we've lost sight of the goal, or we're attempting to use an ego approach to a holy goal. And that is what leads to believing that this program is difficult. So Noel, we should talk offline about what does that mean. And finally, the real message for tonight, because the topic was the consistency of means and ends, to have both the goal that the Holy Spirit gives as well as the means that she recommends and provides for that. When the goal is peace and love, then the means for attaining the peace and love must be from the same source. They must be consistent. In other words, a heavenly goal of peace and love cannot be found with an earthly approach. A heavenly goal for peace and love must be consistent with the goal, and therefore the approach has to be the one given from heaven, which is inner peace and love of equality of infinite value for all beings. And that is hard to find on earth, but is in a great abundance in heaven. And so we have a lot to be thankful for, that to know these things, to understand these things, and to be able to be on a program that helps us to change deeply embedded habits, old habits of that we were on autopilot and never questioned, to look at those hidden assumptions once again in a new light and question them anew and hand the old hidden beliefs over to the Holy Spirit and ask to learn, to choose again, to learn a new habit. Brother Christoph, did you want to say anything?
No. That was an awesome lesson. Yeah, you did a great job explaining everything. No, it was beautiful. It was beautiful. Got
So
a lot
glad
from
to
it.
have you join in on this, brother.
Everybody had a good thing to say. Thank you, Julie, for reading. It was awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all for tonight. We'll pick it up again with, I think it's the final section in the chapter is tomorrow. So we'll look forward to joining again real soon. Thank you. Peace and love to all. Namaste.
Peace, love to all. Thank you. Namaste.
Thanks,
Julie.
Jonaca.
Thank you, Jonaca.
Thanks,
Good to see
Julie.
you, Christoph. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Everybody.
Thank you,
Thank you for
Jonaca.
reading.
Everyone.
Yes. You guys are great.